morning, everyone, to this webinar on sustainability at Swiss WorldCargo. It's a pleasure to be here and to host this webinar. So I am Thierry Hin. I am head of global cargo sales for Swiss WorldCargo, and I'm going to be your host for this hourly webinar today. So sustainability, a topic very close to my heart, a topic very close to Swiss WorldCargo's heart. And so I've been with Swiss for 15 years. The first job I ever had at Swiss was environmental affairs. And ever since, in every job or every role I had in this company, this topic has been one, and it has become more important over the years. So I'm very excited to do this with my colleagues Melanie and Gary. And to start off, what are we going to do in this hour? So first off, we're going to do a little bit of intro, how this works, who is in the call. Then we're going to talk about Swiss overall, about Swiss WorldCargo, and then an industry perspective. And we'll end up with the Q&As that some of you have submitted. You can also ask questions during the call, and we'll try to answer them as good as possible. So housekeeping rules first. You know, we're in Switzerland. It's an orderly country. That's also how we do this webinar. So it's basically four things. So for the moment, you're all in listening mode. So we have the chance for the panelists to talk. You can submit questions through the questions feature in the webinar. And we will answer the questions at the end. And we'll start off with those questions who have been submitted beforehand. And if we can't answer all the questions, we will revert back to you via email. And then lastly, the webinar is recorded, and we will share the recording afterwards with the participants. So this has been basically the order of things. And with this, I suggest we dive right into the topic. And so first off, I would like to introduce you to our panelists. Respectively, I will not introduce you, but I will hand over to my colleagues to introduce themselves. So Melanie, if you could say a few words, who you are and what you do.
Yes, thank you very much, Thierry. So good morning, everyone. Also very warm welcome from my side. My name is Melanie Heiniger. I'm head of corporate responsibility at Swiss. And together with my team and the whole organization, I'm driving our company's sustainability transformation. So our focus is on reducing the carbon footprint of Swiss holistically, and also to promote new relevant climate technologies. I'm with Swiss for more than 10 years, working in different positions in strategy, political and governmental affairs, and communications. Yeah, and with that, I'm handing over to my colleague, Gary.
Okay, good morning to everybody. My name is Gary Zurmühle. I'm the president of IG Air Cargo Switzerland, which is basically the interest group of the air cargo community in Switzerland, consisting of the airports, airlines, ground handling agents, and forwarders, airport truckers. So we have been confronted with the thematic or with the topic sustainability, of course, on a daily basis. We also had it already in our Air Cargo Day 2 years ago, where we put a focus on this topic. Me personally, I'm in the logistics field. I'm a freight forwarder that I learned about 35 years ago. Since then, I was in several positions, management positions in the logistics service providing field. And since 2018, I'm independent, where I support companies in interims management things, as well as in logistics and supply chain solutions. So that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Melanie. And so with this, we dive right in. So again, we will start off with the Swiss overall company approach. Maybe just one word on Swiss WorldCargo. So what we do, for those of you who don't know, we're basically a division of Swiss International Airlines, and we sell the bellies of our passenger planes. So we don't have any freighters. We really focus on the bellies of our passenger planes, where we transport all kinds of goods, focusing on high value goods, given that we are in Switzerland, so pharma, watches, gold, whatever kind of high value goods there are, but of course also the regular air cargo goods. And so this is why we're also a part of Swiss International Airlines. So we benefit directly from Melanie's and her team's actions in terms of sustainability. And so without further ado, I would hand over to you, Melanie, to walk us through what we do as Swiss International Airlines.
Thank you, Thierry. So within the next few minutes, I will present the Swiss sustainability strategy and show you where the biggest levers are, what our challenges are, how we face them, and how we are working together with our partners and customers to overcome them. And as a company, we have a firm commitment made. Sustainability is really part of our company strategy. We have set ourselves ambitious targets and want to be very active in shaping the transformation of the industry towards more sustainable aviation. On the next slide, you can see that we, as part of the Lufthansa Group, we are really joining forces with the whole company of the Lufthansa Group, and we have set ourselves ambitious CO2 reduction targets, halving our emissions by 2030 and achieving net zero in 2050. Besides that, we have set ourselves specific reduction targets of some 30.6% of specific emissions by 2030 already, and this is validated by the Science Based Target Initiative. When we look at the industry overview on the next slide, we can see where the biggest levers are in the industry. This is a roadmap compiled by the industry association IATA, showing the potentials until 2050 to reach net zero in the industry. What you can see is that sustainable aviation fuel plays the biggest role with some 70% of reduction potential. What you can also see is that technical levers in the industry are restricted. Also, electric and hydrogen solutions will only play a minor role, as electrical and hydrogen solutions by 2050 are only expected on short-haul routes. What we need to see is also that carbon removals will play a significant role. We will always rely on removal technologies. When we look on the next slide, we can see the detailed roadmap that we have at Swiss compiled for 2030. We will tackle all measures, rely on a basket of measures from fleet renewal to operations measures in the daily business, also to usage of sustainable aviation fuel based on the mandatory obligations, but also want to contribute with a further voluntary share. And of course, also we at Swiss will rely on external projects, investments in climate mitigation projects, and removal initiatives. On the following slides, I will show you a bit more the detailed measures we are driving at Swiss. When it comes to emissions reduction in our flight operations, we have dedicated teams working on a daily business really to lower our emissions in daily operations. We rely on state-of-the-art aircraft. We have one of the most modern fleets in Europe, and currently a modern aircraft emits around 20% less than older aircraft, and this is really a huge efficiency gain we have thanks to our modern fleet. Also, our teams are dedicated to optimize flight controls, flight routes, procedures, and by doing so, relying on modern aircraft, and also thanks to our efforts in daily operations, we were able to reduce our specific emissions by almost 30% since 2002. Besides measures in daily operations and optimizing fleet consumption, we also rely on modern and innovative technologies. What we have is specific pilot projects. For example, we are working together with Google Cloud and have implemented the technology to optimize the fleet steering, reducing overall consumption in daily flight operations. Also, we teamed up with innovative colleagues from Lufthansa Technics and have applied the so-called AeroShark foiling on our 777 fleet. So the AeroShark foiling reduces the aerodynamic resistance and optimizes fleet performance, resulting in 1% CO2 reduction on the overall fleet. And we are super proud to be the first airline worldwide to use this innovative foil, and are further working on rollout on other aircraft types. Also, we are super proud to have our own operations research team that is part of international research consortia, working on optimized flight routes, not only for Swiss, but for the aviation industry in Europe, and really working on scaling the impact of our work. On the next slide, we come to our key lever. So sustainable aviation fuel is really the key when it comes to the achievement of our CO2 reduction target. The currently available sustainable aviation fuel reduces the CO2 emissions by some 80% compared to fossil fuels. And future so-called synthetic fuels, sun to liquid, power to liquid, have even a higher reduction potential. Also, sustainable aviation fuel reduces non-CO2 emissions and their effects. And what is a really, really big plus is that SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, can be used in existing infrastructure, existing aircraft. This is super key as current aircrafts have a lifespan of some 20 years. And with more than 20,000 aircraft on order list worldwide, it's obvious why they need to have a better, a greener solution and rely on sustainable aviation fuel to be able to achieve our mitigation targets. Also, as we have seen on the previous slide from IATA, there is no real technical alternative inside. So electric or hydrogen aircraft currently are only expected to contribute on the short haul or even or 1 second, please. So electrical or hydrogen aircraft are only expected to really contribute to lowering emissions on short or medium haul routes, but for the time being, we don't see a solution for long haul routes. And long haul routes are the most relevant when it comes to CO2 emissions, as they contribute 80% of the total CO2 emissions that the aviation generates worldwide. So the next slide shows that even though we know that sustainable aviation fuel is the key for achieving our targets, we are really only at the beginning. So we have huge challenges to master to be really able to use SAF in big scale. Currently, only a few producers are on the market worldwide, and we know the technology potential, but it's far from being exploited. We also have currently only the biogenic fuel on the market, and see very, very high entry barriers for synthetic fuel and for new technologies. The SAF today costs some 4 to 6 times more than the fossil fuel, and the future synthetic fuel is expected to be even way more expensive. So this is the real big challenge, and this is why we need to find new creative solutions to use sustainable aviation fuel to be able to scale this promising market. Because right now, when we look at the current prices already facing, each airline that uses sustainable aviation fuel puts itself in a competitive disadvantage. As a background information, airlines do have, from a total cost perspective, around 40% of total costs are related to the use of fuel. And so we are not able to just multiply the current fuel costs. This just doesn't work. And this underlines how important it is to find new ways to tackle the high costs, to bring the costs down for SAF. And this is what we are working on together with the Lufthansa Group and our partners. On the next slide. We are really driving new alliances, finding new innovative approaches to make SAF available, to foster the worldwide scaling, the market ramp up. What we do is we produce specific consortia together with promising technology pioneers, and also we make SAF available to our customers through specific offers. We are in detailed discussions with our customers also to find out how our offers can be tailor-made to their needs, how we can join forces to work on our CO2 balance and also support the reduction of the CO2 balance of our customers. We have set up a very, very high standard when it comes to the use of sustainable aviation fuel, and we are striving only for those technologies with highest quality standards and really high scaling potential. This is also why we are partnering with the Swiss solar fuel pioneer Synhelion. Synhelion uses solar heat to convert carbon source and water into synthetic fuel, and this has super high scaling potential. And this is why we are teaming up with this industry pioneer. Synhelion has now the very first demonstration plant in operation in Jülich in Germany, and is currently working on the market introduction with the industrial production as from 2027 onwards. We are joining forces with the Swiss pioneer and helping them to step on the market, and intend to be the very first airline to fly with Synhelion solar fuel. Also, another key technology we are driving, as you could see in the introduction, besides the sustainable aviation fuel, it's also key to invest in carbon removal projects, and this is why we team up with the Swiss pioneer for direct air capturing, Climeworks. Climeworks has a unique technology to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and has the process established to permanently store it underground. On the other side, the innovation of Climeworks also is a future component of future synthetic fuel as a carbon source. And this is why we are partnering with Climeworks, helping them to accelerate and refine their technology, and also gave firm commitment for a long-term offtake for the permanent CO2 removal. And you will hear later on more about the specific offer in this endeavor we share with customers. So to sum it up, Swiss is on its way. We have started the transformation towards more sustainable aviation. Of course, we need to admit it's a massive challenge. We need to work on all levers. We need to join forces together with unique partners, together with science, technology pioneers, politics, and also with our customers. We have set off, and thank you very much for your support. We are deeply convinced that only by joining forces, using synergies and learning from each other, we will be able to fulfill our targets. And this as a closing remark, I'm now handing over to Thierry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Before we dive into Swiss WorldCargo, maybe 2 comments from my side. So first of all, when we look at where Swiss has started with this topic 15 years ago and where we are today, I think we really made a big leap forward, and the amount of resources and focus that has been dedicated to this topic is really has been increased so much over this time. And I really am strongly convinced where we are today as an airline, as Swiss, we're really at the forefront in this topic in the airline industry. And with the partnerships that Melanie mentioned, also the internal internal tools and initiatives we have, I think we're really at the forefront of this topic. And I have to say, I'm proud on this. And the challenge remains massive, and because it's a systemic topic, so we can only do this together with our partners, with our customers, with industry associations to move forward. So that's just one comment. And the other one is a note on this webinar. So what we try to do in this webinar is give you a high-level overview of where we are on this topic and what we offer. And then at late stages, when we have follow-up webinars, we can also dive into the specific topics, be it SAF, be it DAC, that we can really give you more insights into the specific topics. But this one is really meant as a high-level overview, because I forgot to say this at the beginning. So with this, I move on now to Swiss WorldCargo's offering. On the next slide, you basically see what we do internally. So of course, we profit from all the things that Melanie mentioned, because we use the same planes as our passenger operations. But of course, we also do our homework in terms of the cargo-specific business parts. So I just want to highlight 3 things that we do to give you an idea that we really try to address all different aspects of the business. So starting off with lightweight containers. You know, weight is key. If we use less weight, we get lighter planes. You need less fuel equals less carbon emissions. So what by now we have, basically we started a complete rollover of the containers we use to have a fleet of all lightweight containers, which of course brings then a huge savings in terms of carbon emissions. We also have a very specific cooperation with a Swiss company, a Swiss startup. It's called the Swiss Airtainer, which produces the latest generation of new containers. It's basically a cutting edge technology that reduces weight compared to regular containers by 200 kilograms, which of course then leads to huge savings. So we're trying, and it's again what Melanie touched upon, it's a partnership to develop new technologies. So we really try to push this forward to get as light on the plane in terms of materials as we can be. So that's the one part. The second part is electrification of hub operations. So in Zurich, our key partner is CargoLogic that runs basically our cargo hub in Zurich. And what we have in Zurich is a highly efficient hub that's fully electrified. And that's unique across the globe. If you look at other hubs or warehouses, it's seldom the case that it's fully electrified. And so we have there, in terms of ground handling, we're really cutting edge in Zurich. And also together with our partners, we try to move forward in terms of using renewable energies and further electrifying transportation on the ground. That's the second part. And the third part is basically all kinds of packaging. So just to mention here one thing, so cardboard pellets instead of wood, it's again a topic of lighter materials, which leads to less carbon emissions. And in addition to that, we also use reusable wrapping materials, so plastic foil, and we try to push our partners to use more sustainable materials. And so looking at this, these are all basically small pieces, but if you piece them together, you get a large impact. And so flight operations is the one that's really hard to tackle. It's the chart that Melanie showed with using especially SAF. So we try to do as much as we can on the ground to basically do our homework, that we then, these are basically not the low-hanging fruits, but the medium-hanging fruits, but to address this, and then to go on to tackle the flight operations. So with this slide, we basically tell you we do our homework. And on the next slide, we then go basically to the question of how can we do this together with you as our customers. So what we do now is basically we offer three different, it's three product bundles, how you as a customer can use or can benefit from our green offers. So if you ship something, you have basically the choice of saying, okay, I use climate projects, so offsets, reducing carbon at some other place, and thereby having virtually zero carbon emissions. And what we use is high quality certified carbon offsets. That's the one thing. The second thing is what's here labeled on the slide, SAF choice. So basically it's a mixture of different SAF ratios. So if, for example, if you go on the left, you can say, I have a shipment, I want to use 80% sustainable aviation fuels to make this shipment carbon neutral, and the remaining 20%, I use carbon projects or offsets. And this logic comes from what Melanie said, that at current time, SAF reduces carbon by 80% versus regular fuel. And with this combination, you basically get to 100% carbon neutral shipments. And then you can play around with this, saying, okay, on the other hand of the spectrum, on the right side, I only use 10% SAF, and I use 90% climate projects or offsets. And this depends then actually on your goods, on the value, on the weight, and also on your willingness to pay for offsets. So we want to offer as much as an individualized choice as possible. And then the thing on the upper part of the slide, the Aviation Tech Pioneer, that's really our cutting edge product. That's basically, that's the luxurious product we offer. So we have 80% SAF and 20% DAC. And with this, we are the first airline, I think, to offer DAC as an option to reduce carbon. And so we offer a wide range of choices, and this can be either done on an airway bill level, so basically on an individual shipment level, or we can also do it on a bulk level. So meaning if we have a larger contract, we of course can then do a long-term contract to cover all of your shipments, to give you also the possibility to have more individualized choices. So to say, okay, I want this and this amount of SAF and this amount of DAC and this amount of offsetting. So really to have an individualized offer to your needs. And of course, if we do a bulk agreement, we can also add more things to it, such as joint marketing or your data needs. So we really try to kind of cater to our customers' need in the most individualized way possible. Because what we realized when we started doing this is very much in its infancy. So the needs of our customers are very different across products, across industries, across regions. So we try really to figure out what is the best options for our customers on an individual basis. And so to wrap this up, what we do as Swiss WorldCargo, we of course benefit again from all the things that our colleagues at Swiss International Airlines do. We address all the issues that we have in our cargo-specific operations, and we try to offer our customers as much choice as possible in terms of carbon neutral shipments. So this is, in very short, the Swiss WorldCargo approach. And with this, I would hand over to Gary to give you an insight on an industry perspective.
So thank you very much, Thierry. And thank you for giving me the word. So in the following couple of minutes, I would like to give you a rough summary of where we stand in the whole air cargo process. Because as I said at the beginning, we are representing all the stakeholders in the air cargo process. So the first slide, maybe you wanna press quickly. Okay, so when it comes down to sustainability in the air cargo process, there are various parties involved or stakeholders involved who basically all contribute to the sustainability targets. You have the haulier or trucking company who arranges the pickups or the deliveries to and from the airports. Or what most time we forget, the considerable part of the air cargo that goes by road feeder services to the European hubs, the so-called RFS. Or then you have the logistics provider, freight forwarder, who takes care of the ready of carriage process in their warehouse or in the warehouse of their designated partners. And then the typical ground handling partners, as Jerry mentioned before, like Cargologic, Swissport, or Donata, who do the whole cargo operation or handling operation at the airport, from taking the goods in reception to load them to interim storage, to load them on the loading units, containers, or pallets, bring them to the aircraft and load them on it. And then, of course, the airlines, who are with no doubts the ones, let's say, of the main source of the CO2 footprint in the whole air cargo process. The freight forwarders, and this is what I wanted to say, is basically the one with the least CO2 footprint in the logistics chain, but they are the first ones, let's say, who are speaking to the industry and also get confronted with the demands from the shippers and importers. Maybe we want to go to the next slide. So what role does the sustainability play in air cargo? It plays a very important role because air freight is basically the most criticized mode of transport for the shippers. So everybody needs it in terms of interrupted supply chain or in urgencies or the sensitivity of the goods. But usually people don't like to admit it. This goes on already for years because of the CO2 footprint. As a result, the industry continuously pushing the issue, especially the pharma industry, what we observe. And nowadays, sustainability is always an integrated part of the freight tenders that are placed in the market. So every forwarder who has, let's say, offer an air cargo solution needs to reply to the demand in terms of sustainability. Then you have the CO2 calculators that are in use as a decision-making tool in order to determine which route produces less CO2 emissions, or who of the partners in the chain are also following the sustainability targets. Maybe the next slide, yes. Good. So the airports in general, they have very ambitious targets. So just to say that the I have something is wrong with the slides, huh? Okay. So for years, this the airports have clear targets that they want to follow. I mean, it's between 2030 and 2050. All of our airports, they want to achieve CO2 neutrality. So Basel has a target of 2030, Zurich 2040, and Geneva is also going to 2050. So since 2017, this has been achieving these targets through new building technologies, more energy efficient lighting, heating and cooling systems, alternative renewable energy sources such as the use of photovoltaic systems for the electricity supply. So all is in Basel as well as in Zurich. On the roofs, let's say also on the cargo building, there are photovoltaic systems where they want to produce their own power. Then switching to geothermal energy generation for the heating is also something that's already have been put in place. And then, of course, replace the fossil-driven vehicles for instance, for the fueling trucks, the passenger buses going to the aircrafts. This has already been done, and I would also say that Switzerland has taken over a leading position in Europe or in the world of replacing or doing these measures to become more sustainable. In case of ground handling, it's the same electrification, what Chiri said before, of the entire cargo handling and transport equipment, forklifts, haulers, tugs, and high loaders. They're already been full or running full on electricity. You want to go to the next slide? The transport companies are continuing to invest in the electrification of their fleets. It's a very expensive step that they're gonna do, but they keep on doing it. And also pursuing the usage of hydrogen-powered trucks for long-distance operations. Logistic service providers that are in direct contact with users, particularly the world's leading logistic groups, are also continuing to invest in more efficient or the energy-efficient building technologies, electric-powered handling and transport equipment, enhanced digitalization of their working processes, and internal sustainability projects they launch. That's slide number 5, yeah. Despite of all these considerable investments and efforts, we still face some challenges that need to be overcome in the forthcoming years. And it's also mentioned by Melanie before, the availability of SAF is certainly one of the topic. Even though that it's being offered in the market, and the costs are considerably high. When the costs are considerably high, it means that the freight rates go up, and the big question is, of course, whether the market will allow and accept this increase. From a technical point of view, hydrogen-powered means of transportation or vehicles are not mature enough to be a reasonable alternative to electric vehicles. Accordingly, a nationwide hydrogen supply network is still lacking. The focus is mainly on electrical vehicles. And if we really can consider, especially on the trucking side, hydrogen-powered vehicles, I think we have to wait for the next 5 to 10 years until the technical requirements met or are given for the requirements or to meet the requirements. Then one of the biggest issues and challenges is certainly the limited electric power for overnight charging. You have to see when you have to run a daily operation, all the vehicles and the wide range of electrical vehicles need to be charged overnight. And this is certainly a challenge to do this overnight and to run on full operation the next day. Another thing is that there is enough power when we go on electricity, on sustainable electric power, let's say, by photovoltaic, etc. You need also the infrastructure for the power supply. Then another issue is the state of the current technology of energy storage systems. I just want to underline the battery sizes, the weight of the battery, and the battery service life. Needs to be improved, certainly needs to be considered. It is nowadays still quite a challenge. Then the other thing is that we discuss in the community is always a big topic, especially from the market, is the acceptance and willingness to bear the higher costs that will be carried over to the users eventually. Thank you. So although most airlines finally, please allow me to do this assessment of the IG air cargo community. Although most airlines already offer sustainable freight products based on SAF, they are hardly used from the market, what we have in the discussions, because of the higher costs. The market is interested in those products, but the hesitation of accepting the higher costs for these offered products is rather low, the acceptance. What we also noticed, or what we observe, is that the topic of sustainability and its priority among shippers has been pushed into the background for some times. About a year ago, due to the geopolitical and economical developments. What it also shows us is the development of the e-commerce hype that we observe contradicts the sustainable efforts. Everybody is talking about sustainability. Everybody has his goals and his targets. But when it comes down to the personal opinion of everybody and the personal attitude, it contradicts because with this e-commerce hype, you can see that what is going on from the especially from the Chinese online traders. The industry pushes sustainability further, but the big question is, of course, who's going to pay for it? Because everybody more or less expects that the price will remain the same, which will not be the case, of course. And then what we need is, or what we think it's important, is that the politicians are called to support the investments in power generation projects, that we can ensure that there is enough energy and power for all these efforts we put into, for instance, for electrical or for the electrification of the vehicles. Please allow me, but last but not least, and please allow me to make this remark, especially from the forwarder side. What we hear is that the sustainability topic is often used as a marketing tool more than out of a personal attitude and willingness to change their behavior and pay eventually the price for it. So this is basically what I can say out of the air cargo community and how we see where we stand with the sustainability in the whole logistics, let's say, air cargo process, and how we see which are the challenges for the forthcoming years. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary, for this assessment and these insights. So we'll now move on to the questions. Before we do so, I'll just, again, a brief comment from my side. So I think, as you heard from myself, from Melanie, from Gary, is the big lever for aviation is sustainable aviation fuels. And the big challenge is to scale it up, because the assumption is that in the long run, the scale up will lead to lower prices and higher availability, of course, to scale up. And if we look at other technologies, notably solar panels, you can see that this effect is actually fully in place. And the big unknown is how long this will take for sustainable aviation fuels. And it's also something that no player can do on its own, this scale up. You really need, you need the airlines, you need the customers, you need the governments, the freight forwarders. It has to be some sort of concerted action to scale this up. This is the big thing. And but to add to this, my opinion is sustainable aviation fuel is not silver bullet, but you need other measures as well. All the things that we touched upon, and also be it direct air capturing and storage, DAC, be it climate projects, offsets, and so on. It has to be a combination of measures to address this. Okay, now coming to your questions. We received a list of questions. I will go through them and then see who best is capable to answer them. So to start off, the first question is, how has the Green Choice add-on service of Swiss WorldCargo been received by customers, and are there plans to expand or evolve this offering? Okay, so 2 questions in one. So how have they been received? Very positive. And the uptake of this offer depends very much on, as I said before, on the product, on the region, on the shipper, on the industry. So there is no general trend, because it's really at the moment is trial and error for us, but also for our customers, because everyone tries to find the right angle to this topic. And that's why we also go for this highly individualized approach to really cater to the needs of our customers. And it's a lot of co-creation at the moment. I mean, Gary mentioned the challenges that we have. And I think everyone is trying to figure out what's the best approach. But in general, we're actually very positive how they have been taken up, and also how the topic is evolving, especially in Switzerland and in Europe, to a little lesser extent in the Americas, in APAC, but also there we see a positive trend. And in terms of how is this developing, I mean, we're constantly looking into what could we offer more, how can we develop this, and the main topic we have at the moment is basically customer-friendly processes that we can make offering this as easy as possible, and also booking this as easy as possible. Okay, so I hope I answered the question to some extent. And just maybe one note, there are some of the questions we received, we already covered these in our presentation, so I will skip over them and focus on those we have not really touched upon. So the next question relates to our passenger business. So it's basically, how will Swiss, sorry, it's a German question, that's why I have to simultaneously translate it. How will Swiss push our business and leisure customers in the passenger business to buy SAF for their respective flights? So how do we encourage our passenger customers to buy SAF? I think, Melanie, this is one I can hand over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, as already stated, we need to share the burden, but also it's very clear that we share the same goals with our customers. So our customers have set themselves also very ambitious targets, and this is why we try to find really joint solutions. What we started with our business customers and also with the frequent travelers is to really enter into a dialogue. So how can we share the burden? Which product offers are interesting to them, and how can we design our products consisting of sustainable aviation fuel and investments in climate protection projects? How can we design them to make them interesting to our customers? And this is why we really involve the customers into our journey and successively develop new approaches.
Thank you, Melanie. Then moving on, the next one is a tricky one. How do you envision the price development for your commercial SAF program to cargo customers with the upcoming mandates? So then I guess the upcoming mandates refers to the European Union, which has a mandate starting next year for SAF usage in aviation. So to be honest, and afterwards I hand over to you, Melanie. I mean, the price development is the million-dollar question. We don't know how this is going to develop. What has to be said is we don't put any margin on the SAF we basically sell to our customers. So we don't make any money out of this. We really try to get as much into the system as possible, and with the goal of really scaling this up, and then again with the long-term goal of getting SAF prices down and have more availability. How prices will develop with the SAF mandate is really, at least from my point of view, I really don't know. But Melanie, maybe you can comment on this.
Yeah, concerning price development, it's super tough questions. I agree. So soft price is highly dependent on demand and offer. However, it's also quite dependent on the different technology pathway that is used to produce the sustainable aviation fuel. So which pathway is chosen? So no prediction from my side.
Okay, thank you. So I move on to the next question, which is related to this one. It's, do you see the cost of SAF reducing by 2030? And what is your projection on global SAF shortage issues? What can be done to combat? We touched upon this already, but maybe Melanie, you can comment on this as well.
Yeah, so in general, really, this soft market is still in its infancy. So it's really key that we now scale up this market as quickly as possible, and this needs to happen on a global basis. What we see is now with this upcoming new policy legislations, really trying to foster sustainable aviation fuel and new technology scaling. So here, European Union has certainly a front-runner role by establishing this new mandate. As from next year onwards, 2% of sustainable aviation fuel needs to be uplifted. And this is going to be increased until 70% by 2050. And with this, the European Union will stimulate the market really positively. This we can already see that new providers are stepping on the market, and the European Union has, of course, also the ambition to be a role model for the global development. What we see for the global stimulation, what was really important milestone was achieved last year on ICAO level, when the ICAO community adopted the target to reduce the CO2 emissions of aviation industry by 5% with sustainable aviation fuel by 2030. And this now leads to the fact that different member states of ICAO are adopting SAF mandates themselves. And this is now upcoming. So hopefully pretty soon we will have global SAF mandates stimulating the market further and really kickstart this important technology development we need to see. Switzerland will also go in the same direction, and it's intended that Switzerland is going to introduce a mandate similar to the European Union.
Thank you, Melanie. Just to add, I think the amount of money and focus that is put on the topic is immense at the moment. So you really have a strong movement in terms of new technologies entering the market. As Melanie mentioned, the Synhelion cooperation we have, but also scaling up the existing ones. And again, just to draw the analogy to solar panels, I'm rather optimistic that this is going to become reality faster than later. But it really all depends on the amount of, or the speed of the scale up. What is possible in terms of technology and how much funds are available. Okay, next question is, what role will carbon removals play in the future of air cargo? So carbon removals, I'd say, relating to direct air capturing and storage. So what the technology that Kleinberg, for instance, does. Maybe Gary, do you want to comment on this?
I would say it plays an important role. As I said before, air cargo in general is always in the criticism, or will be criticized, and I think the reduction will push up a little bit, let's say, the whole air cargo. Otherwise, I would say no. So that's all I can say. But I would say that it will certainly help when we can lower the CO2 in air cargo. But air cargo, you have to see, will always be used, I mean, in an urgency, and because the costs are considerably higher, let's say, than with other transportation modes. So I would not say that it will have a too large impact on that.
Melanie, do you want to comment on the Kleinberg's technology? Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, maybe just a general comment. So as also underlined within the presentation, carbon removals, so different technologies to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere are really key also for the whole industry to reach our targets. IATA expects some 20% of carbon removals necessary for 2050 to reach the net zero target. And it's kind of similar to the SAF market. The carbon removal market needs to undergo a huge, massive development as well. So also here, we really need to kickstart the market. And this is what we also try to support from the Swiss side. So to make a targeted commitment also from our side to underline that this technology is highly relevant to us. Not only direct air capturing, also nature-based solutions need to be driven forward. And what we try to do is also to adapt our classic offsetting portfolio and integrate removal projects successively and gradually expand our initiatives in this area. And this is also why we concluded the partnership with Climeworks and gave long-term commitment really to this technology, and we have the ambition to further expand our partnership in this regard.
Thank you, Melanie. I could comment also from Swiss WorldCargo side. I mean, we have Climeworks in our portfolio, and we really aim to push this because I think it's one crucial technology that will help us to get to where we want to be. Won't be the silver bullet, but it's one of the key aspects that we want to push. And just on a side note, I mean, I also find it amazing how these technologies have been developed in Switzerland. Climeworks being a spin-off of ETH Zurich, Synhelion being a spin-off of ETH Zurich, and those two being really cutting-edge technologies in terms of addressing carbon emissions. And it's also something we as Swiss WorldCargo just want to push as being a Swiss company and committed to Switzerland as an economy. Okay, and with this I move on to a tricky one. Why is SAF tanked in Frankfurt and not in Zurich if I buy it as a Swiss customer? And I will put another question to this because it's related. Can you give an indicative timeline by when is SAF available in Switzerland? Melanie, since it's a tricky question, can I hand this over to you?
Yes, of course. So background information is that we have a Swiss and part of the Lufthansa Group have an established and continuous SAF supply in Frankfurt. And this is really using synergies amongst the Lufthansa Group to have this continuous SAF supply to the main hub in Frankfurt, where all the different business units, the different airlines are flying to. And the reason behind is to have really ecological, but also economical background, because it makes no sense to bring SAF to each and every location and causing more costs and more emissions by doing so. So this is just the most efficient way on an established route to have direct supply established. And for the environment, it's really super irrelevant if the SAF is uplifted in Frankfurt or in Switzerland. Most important fact is to not generate additional emissions by transport.
Thank you very much, Melanie.
Regarding the timeline when SAF will be in Switzerland on a continuous basis, this will be, of course, as soon as the Swiss climate policy is kicking in, also requiring this mandatory uplift in Switzerland.
Thank you very much. So looking at the time, we have 1 minute and 26 seconds left. So I will wrap up. So first of all, thank you very much for attending this webinar. Thank you, Melanie and Gary, for sharing your thoughts and taking part in this. It's very much appreciated. And again, so the challenge is massive if you look at climate change and carbon emissions. But I really think we have a very good momentum at the moment with technology and also regulation. And the Swiss International Airlines and Swiss WorldCargo will really try to push this as far as possible and to be in the forefront in this topic. And so this was the first of a series of webinars. So thank you for attending. We will do further webinars and then do deep dives on specific topics, giving you more insights in terms of SAF, DSC, and all the other topics we touched upon. And for the questions we have not answered just yet, we'll come back to you via email and try to get your questions answered. And if you have any further questions, please approach us. We're available, and I'm looking forward to welcome you in another webinar. With this, I'll close. Thank you very much.